and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and today we are going to be talking with Star Bradbury, and she is going to be talking about successful aging for yourself and for maybe a loved one that you're caring for as well. So we're going to be packed with all kinds of good information that you're not going to want to miss. Also, I would encourage you to go to alzheimersspeaks.com. Check out all of the free resources that we have curated there. There are things that you can participate in, like being a guest on the show. If you're living with dementia, you can participate in Dementia in the Arts or Dementia Chats, which are both recordings that we do that are absolutely fantastic. There are tools, there are different resources for memory cafes and dementia-friendly communities and the Purple Angel Project and so much more. You can also access Dementia Map from there, which is our global resource directory that has over 150 categories that you can search, and we're still building that out, encouraging people to take their free listings and connecting people to services, products, and tools that they deserve. And last, I'll give a plug for Betty the Bald Chicken. That's our children's book on lessons on how to care. With no further ado, let's go ahead and introduce you to our guest today. Well, Star, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I went through your book and we've had conversations prior. You are a wealth of information, and I can't wait for more people to learn about you and the work that you're doing. It's quite amazing.
Thank you.
So thank you for taking the time to be here today. I'm going to have you introduce yourself if you don't mind, because you can do a much better job than I can.
Well, thank you. I will try. So I am Star Bradbury, and I have 25 years in senior living and elder care. And a lot of that is a combination, I like to tell people, of both my professional and my personal experience. And by that, I mean, I was the administrative director of an assisted living facility, also of a memory care facility. And then I spent 18 years in a life care community, or a continuing care retirement community. And so that was my professional life. I learned so much from that. I mean, I literally worked with truly thousands of families. But then on the personal side, Lori, my parents divorced and remarried when I was in high school. And as I sadly share, I probably learned more about what not to do and what didn't work, and what I didn't know at that time, in terms of educated, informed decisions. And so collectively, I've just learned a lot, and I felt compelled to put it in the book.
Well, I love that. And I think most of us who fall into this care category, we learn by our mistakes and things that we just didn't know.
Yes.
Because you don't know what you don't know. And so
I say that all the time.
Yeah. What I find amazing is the number of people like yourself, myself, and so many others that are willing to step up and go, I don't want you to go through what I went through.
True.
So let me see if I can help you with that. Now, I always ask all of my guests if they have been personally touched by dementia in their own family or circle of friends.
Absolutely. My mom had vascular dementia. And so she smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and let's just say did not take good care of herself. That would be a mild understatement. And so as she aged, her memory started to go. And at first, I was very confused because some days she'd sort of be better. And we'd have conversations on the phone that seemed pretty normal. And then the next day, not so much. And that's with vascular dementia, it can come and go because that has to do with level of oxygen to the brain. And so that was an education. And then my beloved stepfather, who I moved to be closer to me after my mom died first, another curveball, Lori, that wasn't what we were all expecting, my sisters and I. He ended up with dementia requiring memory care. I helped him for many years until that just became untenable. And then he moved into memory care, actually where I was working, which was a life care community. So I got to go see him and know he was taken care of. And then my dad had Parkinson's, and I discovered that at the very end of the cycle of Parkinson's, it's very much dementia involved. He was in the late stages of Parkinson's. Absolutely, he had a lot of confusion and dementia. And my stepmom was the only one who did not have dementia. But yes, I just saw a lot and learned a lot. And oh gosh, I want all your listeners to avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pitfalls out there, and you don't know they're there till you're in them, and then
I
you
know.
just
But I also want to say to your all the caregivers out there, don't beat up on yourself because that just doesn't do any good at all. Just do the best you can and educate yourself the best you can, and then when you're in the middle of a pile of you know what, and you've had a curveball, talk to people who've been there. Find out what your options are. Don't make assumptions.
that's great advice, because when you're if you spin in it, you're just wasting your energy, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets even harder
Mm-hmm.
to get back on track. Your book, successfully navigating your aging parents senior years, this is not just dementia specific. It can be used for anybody,
Oh yeah.
at all, but it definitely can help us dealing with dementia as well. So when we're talking today, keep that in mind. This isn't always about somebody else. You can apply this stuff to your own life.
True. Some of my consulting clients are in their 60s taking care of their parents in their 90s. And the fastest growing demographic in the United States, and I wonder if this is true um, globally, is 90 to 100. And so I'm positive there's people out there listening who are so focused on caring for their aging parents in their 90s or even 100 that they're neglecting planning for their own aging successfully, which is easy to do if you're a caregiver. But yes, I wrote this book to help people make educated, informed decisions. And the feedback I'm getting from people is they're buying it for themselves and then getting copies for their children and then having a meeting, a Zoom meeting or in-person meeting to talk about developing a plan and what would that look like and really having heart-to-heart conversations. So I did write it for both, well, more specifically, adult children of any age, helping any loved one, and then also to apply to yourself.
And I think that is such a good way to look at it. I know when I was dealing with this with my own parents, they did not want to deal with it until, Tom and I stepped up and said, we're going to do this with you. And then it wasn't an end of life. Hey, you're going to be dying. We better get this in order type
Right.
thing. Then it was just a smart living thing. And that switched the perception on what we were doing and why we were doing it. Totally. I want to ask you, when the heck should families begin having these conversations about aging successfully?
Well, that is such an important question, and I'm thrilled that you asked that because I have a something I talk about in the book that sort of sums up and really helps people sort of envision the arc of your parents post-retirement and aging. I mean, think about it for a minute, Lori. You could have a parent that's retiring at 60 and they might well live into their 90s or mid 90s. So their needs are going to change over that time. But you can't wait till they're 70 or 80 and in a crisis to sit down and say, what's your plan to age successfully? Do you want to age in your home or age in place? Are you thinking about moving? So in my book, I call it the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. Where are your parents on that spectrum? The mistake I see adult children make, Lori, is they think their parents are always going to be in those go-go years. I hear people say, "Oh, my dad golfs 5, 6 times a week. Oh, my parents just got back from Europe or traveling. They're always on the go." That is great, but those years don't last forever. So the time to answer your question is when your parents are in their 50s. Someone joked with me the other day and they said, "I think from the time you graduate high school, you should start talking and planning for your own retirement." Well, no, that is just not practical. Nobody's going to start that young. But if you have parents in their 50s, that's the time to talk. Why? One thing in particular, how are they going to pay for long-term care if they should ever need it? You can't solve that issue overnight or even in 5 years.
No. Well, and I think it's interesting because I actually think younger kids are looking at things differently.
I do too.
They've looked at our lives and go, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live for a job. And so they are
True.
planning. And I had one person, and I think I mentioned this to you offline, where their graduation gift to someone graduating high school or college, didn't make any difference, was a healthcare directive and will like
Wow.
package
I
so that
love that
they could
idea.
get set up. And so I don't think any age is too young to
Either
have
do
these
I.
discussions. And I was one of those people when I was in real estate. I did that for 25 years before I got into this industry. I was one of those kids that thought old was always 10 years older than my folks. And I didn't realize I was doing that out of denial. It was, because I didn't want to have to deal with that.
Right.
I dealt with that with so many people and so many families in my business. And I was always so proud of how active my folks were. And so I always thought, well, if I had this like 10-year curve, I always had time. And it doesn't work like that. All of a sudden, my dad had cancer, my mom had dementia, and boom, crash, boom, you are in the thick of
Then
things.
you're right. And those things don't happen overnight. Well, let me take that back. You could have a stroke, and
Mhm.
then overnight, your cognitive impairment could could be as a result of the stroke. So I don't want to say it, but for many cognitive impairment issues, they creep up, they're slow, and uh, and if you're not seeing your parents on a regular basis, believe me, you can miss it
Mhm.
because most children like you, they're in denial. It's hard to look at your beloved mom or dad and think, are they losing it? Is this just sign of a because they forgot something simple, or is it something to truly be worried about? It's not natural for the parent-child relationship to look at your parents and see the worst possibility.
Yeah, well, no one trains
Alzheimer's.
us. No one educates us on
No,
what to look for in these things. I mean, it's not discussed in school. It's not something you learn. And it's not something that a lot of families talk about, especially the older generations. It's like nobody needs to know my dirty laundry. That's private.
true. And they're good at hiding it. But I
True.
always tell people there are red flags, and I have a whole chapter in my book about the red flags to look for and when should you really be concerned. If
Mhm.
you see pills all over the floor and medications completely disorganized and in different rooms and different boxes, that's a red flag. If
Yep.
you see old food in the refrigerator that they're not throwing out, or that maybe they're actually thinking about eating, if you see post-its, and I don't mean one or two, if you looked at my desk right now, you'd see two or three post-its, but I mean, there's a post-it for everything. There's a post-it in every room and over reminders. You see them missing appointments, or they used to be very gregarious and go out and be social, or immaculate dressers. You see changes in that. Those are all red flags where your parents may need more help in the home. And maybe that's all that means.
Yep.
It's not like they're dying next week. They just need some help. And and you can figure out what's the best kind of help and what kind of help that will help them and allow them to stay independent.
I think one of the things we need to teach people is how do you approach these conversations? Do you address that in the
Oh,
book?
it is a tough one. I have all kinds of tips and hints in the book about how do you begin those kinds of conversations. And the first thing I suggest, Lori, is that you start with yourself. Meaning, what do I mean by that? You would go to your mom and dad, and let me model this conversation and say something like this. Hey, mom, I want to bring up a topic that I'm worried about and I'm concerned about. And that is I don't want to be confused or not know what your wishes are, what your concerns are, what I should do if something happened to you or help or to dad. And I read about stuff in the paper, or my friends, or online, and my friends are going through a crisis with their parents. I don't want to wait for a crisis. Could we sit down and talk about what your plan is to age successfully before there's any kind of crisis? And then you start with open-ended questions like, are you thinking about staying in your house and aging here for forever? Or are you thinking about moving closer to me or to John, my brother? Are you thinking about what kind of lifestyle do you want? Way, way ahead of the need. I'm the one that's worried. I'm the one that wants reassurances from you. Can you help me out? So that's you make it about you.
And that's a wonderful suggestion. I found that too when I sold real estate because I would help kind of people with these conversations as well. And the parents were always shocked that the kids were worried or that they had concerns and some of them were just thrilled to death that they cared. I didn't know they cared, because we didn't really, in our family, we didn't, not in my family, but in some families, they just didn't talk about those things. So they didn't know the level of care. I have a neighbor who just went to the doctor and her three sons came with her.
Oh, really?
And she was like, I am so happy my sons came with me. I am so proud of my boys, how much they care for me, that they showed up. And that just calmed her down on
I
so
love
many
that story.
levels.
Parents are worried, Lori, about being a burden to their children.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's one thing they don't want to be, it's a burden. So often they avoid the topic and they don't want to bring it up at risk of especially in today's world. They look at their kids in middle age and they're overwhelmed. Why? They're still raising kids. They're working full time. They have financial stress and strain already, and they don't want to add to that. So often your parents will not be honest with you about either what is really going on, even their health care, unless it's so serious they either hide it from you or share it with you, much less caring for them. But if you bring it up and you say, I'm worried, I don't want to be guessing. Let's start talking about this now, what your plan is. And remember, I have two principles in my book that I can really consider guiding foundational principles to help families, whether really for an aging person themselves or their adult children. And I hope is this a good time for me to share those
Oh,
principles?
please.
Okay. So principle number one is so this is what you should ask yourself when faced with a decision for yourself or your aging parents. How can I maximize and prolong my parents' independence for the longest possible time? But that kind of a question, the answers to that and the definition of what independence means is going to change. Are they 60, 65 in the go-go years? Are they 95 in the no-go years? What does independence mean for them at that stage of life?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it could mean that independence means living in a facility or a community, a retirement community, even assisted living, where they're going to get the support they need to continue to live independently. So, so that's principle number one. How can I maximize and prolong my parents or my own independence and being resilient and flexible about what that might mean, not getting stuck and saying, I'm never leaving my house. I'm only going to age in place. I don't want any help. That's not going to do you any good if you really do need help.
Exactly. And that's what people have the fear of
Right,
going there. And
right.
it really needs to be addressed because none of us are in control of that.
Lori, I say to people, wouldn't you define independence as being able to live where you want and maintain your independence to make your own decisions and being in control of your life, But what if allowing somebody in your home 2 or 3, 4 days a week allowed you to stay in your home
Yep.
because you got the help you needed instead of pushing yourself to exhaustion or to a fall or ending up in the hospital or saying I don't need any help when a little help would make all the difference in the world.
I
So I want to stress that to stay resilient and flexible. My mom gave me a t-shirt which I threw out, wish I hadn't. I didn't appreciate it in my 40s that says growing old is not for sissies.
Well, when you're talking about that flexibility, I used to, again, go back to my real estate days when I would be approaching people and they're like, some would say, I'm not leaving unless I go feet first,
Right. People
because
used
their
to say
goal
that.
has been to live in that house. And there was never any more conversation other than attain your house, keep it, live there forever. And people had this visualization, this perception of what a nursing home was. They didn't really know of all the other different
Right.
variables. And even nursing homes have changed so much. What I would find is once we would sell somebody's home, I would have a hard time getting a hold of them in their new place because they were so
And
busy
happy.
and happy, and they didn't realize they had lost that socialization piece because it left so slowly over time
Right.
in their
I
home,
see
and
that,
and
Lori.
they just get used to it. And the kids would say, oh my gosh, they've just blossomed. My mom or dad
I
is back
love
to
that when
being
I saw it.
social again. Yeah. And so there are pieces that, I don't care what age we are, sometimes we go through things and we just don't realize how our life has changed and how we have changed, to adapt to it, and trying to keep a positive mind frame. You don't dwell on what you've missed in the
And like you
past.
said, you may not even notice, especially after COVID,
Yep.
where I've seen people not bounce back, not
Mhm.
reconnect. And one of the questions I sit down and ask of an older person or people trying to evaluate how well their parents are doing is this: how strong is their support system? How socially connected are they? Are they at risk of becoming isolated or lonely? Because all of those, when looked at in a bigger picture, are the best indicator of whether or not they are going to age well or have major, major issues. Support system, social connectedness, and are they isolated and becoming more isolated?
Mhm.
That is a serious red flag.
Yep.
Why? The question asked is, why is this happening for mom or dad? Is it
Exactly.
just depression? Is it the beginning of dementia? Are they trying to not let anybody know that they're struggling with memory issues? Have they just slowly, like you said, withdrawn?
Sometimes it's a little bit of everything. For my
Right,
mom with dementia, I think she got to the point where she would be part, but she wouldn't speak, and she always was part of the conversation and stuff. But she became this wallflower because she didn't want to make a mistake. She
right,
didn't want to embarrass herself or my
right,
dad or whoever she was with, and or for other people to know that she was different. And
right,
yet she still loved being around the energy of her friends and things, but it was kind of swept under the rug,
right.
and back then, I mean, she's been gone since 2014 and lived with it for 30 years.
Oof.
People didn't even talk about, do you tell anybody or not?
I'm not a fan of families who say, we're not gonna tell anyone.
Well,
You
you
know,
can't
that
get the support you need if you don't.
no, no, and then what happens? It becomes the big secret,
Hmm.
and I'm not as like I said, I'm not really a fan. But for those of you out there saying, "But I promised my dad I would never place mom in a facility," or "I promised my mom," or "I just can't do it," let me remind you what both Lori and I are saying. And I have run assisted living facilities. I've worked in a full life care community and memory care. I've seen people actually regain their lives back because they have peers, they have colleagues who remember the songs of their era, the what they all lived through collectively. And that's different than aging in place alone in your home with a home care companion that fixes a sandwich for you and then goes back to watching TikTok or their
Mhm.
videos. They're not a companion. They're not a conversationalist. So before you rule that out, go visit. Actually, I always say ahead of the need, go visit the facilities in your area. It might be a life care community that has a 5-year wait list, by the way, or even the best memory care that also has a wait list. So just because you're looking doesn't mean you're making a decision. And I would say go by yourself without your mom or dad first.
Mhm.
Take your sister, take your friend, and under no duress or crisis, go visit the communities you might be considering in the future for your loved one
And get on the list
and
for
get
them.
on the list.
If that is something I've had many people through the years through support groups go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I was on so many lists because, if you pick
Yes,
just the one you want, they might not have an opening, and you need to be educated on what's available. Star, I want to get back to you had two principles, and I
I
think
did.
I think we only covered the one. Oh, can you tell us number two as well?
Yes, yes, I'll be happy to. So, a number two I call just-in-time senior planning. And by just-in-time senior planning, I suggest to families that when they're trying to develop a plan or look ahead at their parents' needs or your own needs, that you really keep it to a 3 to 5 year window because the just-in-time concept looks at your emotional, physical, and financial resources and recognizes that trying to make a 10-year plan for somebody that's 70, much less 80 or 90, is a waste of time and energy because there's no way that situation will not change. So just limiting it to 3 to 5 years makes it like a biteable piece of something you can handle, where you're thinking, well, what was my mom going to need in the next 3 to 5 years, or my mom and my dad, or yourself? Meaning, let's say plan A is I'm going to age in place.
Mhm.
Right now, your health is great. So the question to ask in terms of just-in-time planning, what could you do? Well, modify the house before the need. Is your house totally safe to age in place? Is it one story or the bathroom is modified? What else can you do to make that home safe for your parents or for yourself? And maybe that's your 3 to 5 year plan. And meanwhile, you're doing continuous improvement. Every year, you're kind of taking that plan out and looking at, are my advance directives up to date? Is my will and trust up to date? Is my home modified? If this were to no longer work, why? Couldn't drive anymore? One of you needs more care? Can't stay at home anymore? Total exhaustion as a caregiver? You don't wait till you're in the hospital as a caregiver. You're continually improving that 3 to 5 year plan and changing it as needed.
I love that. One of the things I can't believe how my real estate stuff keeps popping back up, but people would be like, I don't want to spend this money to fix up the house for
Right.
someone else. It will correct. Do it so you enjoy it. So the value is there. You know what needs to
True.
be
It
done.
adds value.
And
No
and the
question.
and the people who do that are like, oh, why did we wait so long?
Right.
They
Right.
just
It's not like you can say, in 1 year and 3 days, I'm going to fall and break my hip and not be able to get in and out of the shower because the lip is so high,
Mhm,
or I have a low toilet. I haven't even modified my toilet to 17 inches high. We're a lot easier to get up and down with the
mhm,
safety bar. And actually, I did this to my bathroom. My safety bars are so pretty that you don't even know that it's a safety bar. I
mhm.
mean, it looks like a roll for toilet paper, but it's also a safety bar. So all of those improvements are seen as a big, big plus, and they're worth every investment because maybe it allows you to age in place again in your home, which is what most people want, safely for another 4 or 5 years. Well, think what you just saved in paying for assisted living, Lori. Have it 6, 7, 8,000 a month, private pay.
And you're going to save money on your improvements the earlier you do them because prices
True.
keep going up. And you're
Absolutely
going to
true.
and you're going to reduce your stress when it is time, if it comes that time to sell your house. It's one whole level you've removed.
Right.
And it is a stressful time even when you are emotionally prepared to do it. It's still exhausting. It's a big change, but you'll land in a soft place, and you will find that you are able to be more independent in your new setting. That's really the only reason anybody ever moves, is to
True.
have a better fit. And
Right.
just because we're older doesn't mean we're done. It just means we're in another stage of life.
I
Yeah,
love that. You're just in, I tell people the people that age successfully, Lori, see the next
Mhm.
stage of life as a new adventure
Mhm.
instead of dreading it.
Yep.
And I think that that's really important. There's a quote that I love that says, "Do not regret getting older. It is a privilege denied many."
Exactly. Exactly.
If
Well,
you're getting older, then I like to say be a realistic optimist. Be an
celebrate
optimist
that
about
gift.
it, but be realistic. For example, the whole second part of my book is location, 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 where I talk about what to consider to age in place if your parents want to stay in their home, and there's a long, long list of things beyond modifying your bathroom to consider. But I also talk about full service retirement communities. I'm not talking about Margaritaville and, just party communities, which are great for some people. I'm not putting that down. But I think a lot of people don't understand what is a full service retirement community. Well, it's a place that caters to a very active, healthy senior population. However, they have 3 meals a day in beautiful restaurants, and usually your monthly fee includes 2 meals a day or something like that. It includes all your housekeeping. It includes all your maintenance, so you're not hassling with maintenance. There's all kinds of clubs and usually gyms and outdoor and indoor pools. There's home care on site if you need it. You're not trying to find your own home care. That company might be helping you temporarily after surgery and you're coming home from the hospital. Not ongoing need necessarily. There's 24-hour security. Super important if you're a solo senior or you're aging and you want to be in a super safe, secure environment where people can't just come and go. But it's independent living.
Yep.
There's beautiful homes, there's cottages, there's apartments, but there's one monthly fee that covers your utilities, your internet, your cable, your food, your maintenance. It simplifies life and what allows you to stay independent because you don't have all those hassles anymore. And some have assisted in memory care as
Mhm.
well. That's handled financially differently than a life care community, but that's a full service retirement community. Look at the ones in your town or your parents' town and see if there's something that they would love.
Yeah, I think if they get out there and tour, the impressions
They
change
would be
of
shocked at
what it
what's
is.
available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll never forget doing this will be, I swear this will be my last reference to real estate, but
I
I
don't mind because it's all relevant. It's all
I'll,
true.
I did a program for a builder who had one level townhomes. And I said, I want to pull people in and educate them on why this move is beneficial and how it can help, blah, 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 blah. And it was amazing. It was supposed to be an hour long, and then they were off and running. 3 hours. After three
Oh,
hours, I had to kick them out. And what was funny, Star, was that people were in the group and they saw their friends and neighbors, people that they were really close to, and none of them had ever mentioned that they had been thinking maybe they should investigate this.
wow.
And it was so powerful for them to see they weren't alone, because they were thinking they were the only ones in their group that were thinking, oh, maybe we need to make a change. But they were kind of almost embarrassed
Huh.
about talking about it. And then when they saw everybody, there was this comfort. And several of them all moved into the same neighborhood then. It was just hilarious. But it was like, we have to get these conversations comfortable, because it does
True.
go through everybody's mind. It goes through the seniors, it goes through the kids, the neighbors. Everybody is seeing things in a different light, and we have to have a respectful conversation and understand what the main goal is. And again, it's the independence.
And um and I'm glad you kind of returned back to that independence because when you're having these difficult conversations, Lori, with your parents, and especially if you think they're a little resistant, one of the ways to start that conversation is, hey, mom and dad, I want to talk to you about what your plans are after you retire, or now that you're retired, or now that you've been enjoying your retirement for 10 years, whatever their stage is. Um, uh, and I just want to kind of check in with you because I'm guessing that you want to stay as independent as you possibly can for as long as you can. Now, you and I both know not one parent, not one parent is going to disagree with that. You've made a statement about independence that they can relate to and is an open opens the door to more questions. So I'm guessing that they're going to say, yes, that's true. And that to which you say, well, I know we're on the same page because that's what I want for you too. I would like you to be as independent as you can for as long as you can, because I don't live in the same city or state, or, I'm still working full time. And if you needed help, that would be a real challenge. But let's talk about what kinds of decisions you could make now, or we could talk about now in terms of developing a plan that's going to promote that independence. Do you want to stay in your house? Okay, and then they're in a three-story house and all the bedrooms are upstairs and the bathrooms are upstairs, and mom already had hip surgery and you're wondering if she's going to be able to make it up those stairs. So what's their situation? How can you bring this up in a way that's going to not confront them and get you on the wrong path?
Well, you started with a question that they'd answer yes to, where most families go, I don't think it's safe anymore for you to
Right,
be here, or I've noticed this. And then it's
right.
like you're spying on them and pulling away that independence. I do want to, if anyone is just starting to listen to us kind of mid-show here, we were talking with Star Bradbury, who has written this fantastic book. So again, her book is Successfully Navigating Your Parents' Senior Years. And you can get this on Amazon, and I'm sure they can go to your website as well, Star.
Yes, and it's available on every major website. Plus, there's an Audible version if you like to listen to your books, or if you're buying books for your kids and that's the only way they take in their books, is you can do the Audible version or the paperback version. And there's even on my website, if you're buying multiple books, I think it's 5 or more, like to give to siblings or to give to your own kids, there's a discount under Porchlight Books for multiple books. And I just wanted to let people know that.
As you can tell, she is just a wealth of knowledge. So if you're just hopping on now, you're going to want to spin back and hear this from the beginning. You can always go to her website, starbradbury.com. And she just has tons of stuff. She's on YouTube. She just joined TikTok. And so you can enjoy her videos there. And her book is also on Amazon. We're going to hear from Q-Blocks, and then we'll be right back. I want to introduce you all to Q-Blocks. They have been absolutely excellent to deal with. They have been in business for 18 years and they serve the globe. I can't say enough good things about this company. I've had a lot of bad experiences. I don't know about you with tech companies. They have made a very complicated process very easy. And their staff is so kind, so polite, so respectful to work with. And, when I am frustrated and ready to pull my hair out, they just smile and tell me everything's going to be okay. And they really are just on top of the communication, which alleviates so much stress as an owner when you're dealing with tech issues. You can get a 10% discount. Visit them at Q-Blocks at CUEBLOCKS.com, or you can email them at letstalk@qblocks.com. For that 10% discount, just put Lori, Lori, in the inquiry form. And again, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I surely haven't been. I can't rave enough about this company. And that's kind of rare these days. Star, I wanted to ask you about helping parents and who are resistant to receiving help. I mean, there's a lot of us out there that are really independent and we just don't want anyone knowing our business. I've seen that over and over with many families. They won't let me know their finances. They don't want to talk about prepaid burials and even what they wish at the very end of life or how they want to live their life. They just don't want to talk about it. What do you say to those kids that are really struggling to get through to help?
Well, let's start with, the one of the most important issues that I always start with in consulting and sitting down with a senior or a family is there a living will? And is there a healthcare surrogate form, which are advanced directives? And God forbid you should have one of those parents who are resistant to doing a living will. And I'm sure your listeners know, but a living will is a document that your parents fill out and you fill out. It doesn't matter how old you are. That basically says this is the treatments and procedures I want or don't want at my end of life when I cannot speak for myself. Something's happened and I'm either unconscious or I've been in an accident or I've had a stroke and you're calling 911 and someone else is going to be making those decisions for you because you've told them what you want, and that's your healthcare surrogate. That's the person, your healthcare proxy, healthcare surrogate, could be medical power of attorney. Those are all a person you have designated and chosen to speak for yourself about your end of life wishes when you can't speak for yourself. Let's say you have a parent who hasn't done that yet. You brought it up. Well, first of all, I'm going to say go visit the Conversation Project online, which is a wonderful resource and a wonderful website. And they actually have free conversation starter kits. All of that's online. You could print it out. They used to mail it to people, and I'm not sure if they still do that, but it's all online. And it gives you really a step-by-step guide about how to have these conversations, either with your kids, if you're an adult and your kids don't want to talk about it, which is not unheard of. Like I have one son who said, no, absolutely not. I could never be your healthcare surrogate. Please don't even ask me. I mean, got all upset, freaks out every time he thinks about even the possibility. I always joke with him, the possibility of me dying. No, honey, it's it's not a possibility. It's an eventuality, right? And then I have a son who's happy to talk to me and be in that role. So you never know who's starting the conversation. The adult, doesn't matter. Go to the Conversation Project, free information. Also, in all different languages. And I mean Filipino and Spanish and all kinds of languages for those listeners who need different languages, especially if their aging parents aren't fluent in English. So, but here's what you say. You say, Mom, if something happened to you and we haven't had this conversation, I cannot handle just guessing what you want. And do you really want to do that to me? Yes, you're using the guilt trip. Go ahead and do it. Do the guilt thing. Mom, Dad, do you really want me to be guessing? I am freaking out at the mere idea of wondering what you want. You've got to talk to me about this. I need to know. What if something happens to you? Let's do this together. I haven't done one either. I'm going to do one with you. You help me and I'll help you. That's another one. Or I've done mine, I'd like to show you mine. And also, let's say they don't want to talk to you about it. Almost every senior center in the United States has free workshops on completing advanced directives. Even fire departments are doing this now. Senior centers, fire departments, home health agencies host free seminars on completing advanced directives. Of course, the biggest issue I hear from people is I don't know who to ask to be my healthcare surrogate. My kids live in other states, or I don't want to ask them, or they're not, as I like to say, willing, capable, able. What if they're not? What if you have an only child and they have addiction issues? Well, you're not going to ask them. So you really need to brainstorm. But I'm convinced, I have a friend in that situation, and it turns out that her neighbor that she'd been walking with for years, they'd meet in the morning and go for a walk. So she was scared to ask her, but she did. And she said, I'm honored you would ask me. Yes, I will be your healthcare surrogate. So you need to broaden who you're going to ask if you're in that situation. But if it's for your parents, you model that you're doing it for you and you want to know what their wishes are. That usually works, Lori.
I think so too. What if a loved one needs more care than what somebody can provide them? How do they how do they go about finding the right fit? If it's home health care, if it's a senior community, is there a place where there's like a list of questions that they should ask, to compare? Because A looks different than B. It's complicated out there.
And it's overwhelming, and people don't know where to begin. And as I like to say, you don't know what you don't know. And why should the average person even know the difference between home care and home health care, which could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars? Because people think, oh, I need home health. They call the company and they say, well, my mom needs help. And the next thing you know, you're paying $125 an hour for a nurse they don't need. They don't need a nurse. They need a home care companion. And I talk a lot about that in my book. How do you get care for your parents in their home? What is the difference between home care and home health care? How do you know if they need more care? And if that's assisted living, what is assisted living? Who will they take? Who will they not take? Who pays for that? All of this is why I think my book is unique, because it's written from expertise of my 24 years in senior living, running assisted living, running memory care, working in a life care community. So I want to pass on the knowledge to families struggling so that they have a basis and a foundation to make educated and informed decisions. Also, I want to point out, and I'm so glad you thought of this, because on my website, on the homepage, website is www.starbradbury, STARBRADBURY.com. On the homepage at the top, I have a tab under resources. If you go to that resources page, I literally have pages and pages of free information on how to vet home care, how to hire home health care, touring questions to ask if you're touring any kind of senior living, whether it's a full service retirement community or a life care community, useful websites for national websites, government websites, Medicare, Medicaid. It really, honestly, is a wealth of information. I chose to put all of that up there for free. Why? I want to help people. I want to give people the information and finding the information. Nobody has hours and hours to find this information. I promise you, you can find a lot of information on my website and in my book that's going to help you on this complicated, challenging journey.
Well, and the problem that we have when we step into this is we don't even know what to Google. I mean, we don't even know the
True.
terms. We don't know what's available. And so that's why it's so important for people to hook up, with people like Star out there. It just, and then to be able to have this with you and, be able to refer to it, because not everything in here might not apply to you, but a lot of it will. And if it doesn't work for you, somebody else, it might work for, because all of our needs are a little bit different. So this will end up turning into your own personal little Bible for care, in terms of supporting people. It'll be very, very helpful.
I really hope so. And that's why I wrote it. And the last part of the book is a prepared exit plan. And I think one of the most challenging things I discuss is a tough topic, and that is, what is a good death?
Mm-hmm.
What is a good death? And what does that even mean? Very different things to very different people. But just like the majority of people want to age in place in their home, the majority of people want to pass away in their own bed, in their own home, surrounded by friends and family. And yet, statistically, that is not what happens. So that whole section of the book is talking about, what do you want at that time in your life, and how can you actually, believe it or not, apply my two principles to that time in your life and make a plan to have a good death, so that you have a chance of that happening if you want to be at home, and most people do.
And I think the other thing in terms of the book is sometimes kids have fear of being with somebody when they pass.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I do and how do I do that? And I mean, I have been honored to be with many people as they've passed, and it is one of the most comforting things and one of the most, fulfilling things I think that you can do. And it takes a lot of the questions out after someone has passed up. Maybe I should have done, or I could have done, or, all of those things. You just don't have to deal with those so much when you're there, when you're
Yeah,
just,
I'm so glad you said that because I have also been present with a number of people taking their last breath. And there is something comforting about being there with that person, even if it's not in their home. And I want to reassure your listeners who, naturally are going to, if it's never happened to them and they've never been in that situation, have a lot of anxiety. But here's a couple of things to remember. One, if hospice is involved, they offer tremendous support for the family and education and preparation about what to expect and what to look for and to be there for you and support the family during that dying process. Two, I have a whole chapter on an end of life doula
Mhm.
because that's also a wonderful resource to families to find an end of life doula, just like a birthing doula at the beginning of life. An end of life doula is there to help support you, the dying person, and the entire family in many, many truly remarkable and wonderful ways. And so there's information in my book and on my website about end of life doulas and how to find one
Yeah.
in your area and face that for ourselves. And we can
Mhm.
all think about what would I want? I mean,
Exactly.
I have people who've planned it out. They've even written their own obituaries. They can tell you the music they want, the flowers they want. The it's just another way of looking at a part of living.
Exactly, exactly. Well, thank you, Star, for being with us today. For our listeners, I want to ask you all to be givers of hope. Like, click, and share this episode with others in your sphere who need this information. This isn't something people ask for because they just don't even know how to ask for it. They don't know how to broach the topic. So help them get the information that they need, because all of us at one time or another are going to be dealing with a loved one that needs help.
Mhm.
And we have to be prepared in advance to the best of our ability. And we can reduce a lot of stress by just doing some homework ahead of time and getting educated and sharing this information. It's just been such a joy to spend this time with you, Star. Again, you can go to her website, which is starbradbury.com. She is on YouTube as Star Bradbury 4934, on TikTok as Senior Living Star. Her book is accessible on her website and also through Amazon, and I'm sure the other bookstores as well. This has just been a wonderful conversation. Again, all her contact information will be in the show notes. Please feel free to reach out and check out her website as well. And then, Star, was your publisher going to do a discount? Was that you?
Yes. And if they go to Ben Bella Books and order a book, they will get a discount if they enter the code coupon when they're checking out. And I think it is Speaks, SPEAKS, in all caps. And that will automatically give them a discount on the book. And it doesn't matter if you're ordering multiple books, it'll still apply. And the book is not expensive. I think it's $20 full retail, but Amazon has it for $16.97 or something plus tax. With the discount, it's probably even less than that if you order directly through Ben Bella. So, and they've been just wonderful. I can't say enough nice things about my publisher and how much they've helped me. So,
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. We wish you all the success in the world, and know that you're always welcome back on Alzheimer's Speaks anytime.
thank you. Be thrilled.
Thank you. Bye, everyone, and we will catch you next time. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors. From fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.